Hey everyone, welcome back. So we all know the US boycott hit hard earlier this year, and the US alcohol was one of the first to feel it. Since March 5th, it's been disappearing from shelves all across Canada, and the shift has not slowed down. Canadians are turning to local options, supporting homegrown wines, beer, and spirits, and even choosing imports from anywhere but the US. There's been real solidarity coast to coast. Well, almost. Except for these two who didn't get the message. Yeah, we're all looking at you. But here's the bigger question. How are Canadian vineyards and breweries actually doing since the shift? Today, we're going to dig into a few reports that came through the comments. And while I'd love to give them a shout out, the channel's been getting hundreds and even thousands of comments a day, and I actually lost track of who gave me the shout out. So if it was you, I want to thank you, and I apologize for not being able to name you directly. All right, let's take a look.
Now, no U.S. Bureau of Census data shows a dramatic drop in American wine imports into Canada, down nearly 94% compared to last year. What does all of this mean for BC wine sales? Joining us is Jeff Guinard, CEO of BC Wine. Jeff, good to see you. First of all, what kind of impact, if any, are you seeing it here in BC?
It's actually having a huge impact, right? So the 90% decline, that's on the importing of any U.S. products into BC. There's still some stuff in the system, but Canadian consumers are increasingly choosing BC products and Canadian products instead. So a couple of wineries I was speaking to earlier this week said this is one of the best seasons they've had already because they have those extra retail sales coming in. And after a couple of tough years in our industry, that's been really good news for them.
All right, so right away, you can see there's a shift. More and more Canadians are turning to Canadian wine and beer. And to be honest, they really have no choice. But let's be real here. It's not just because the alcohol is not available. Even if it was, a lot of that anger towards the US that we have right now would keep those bottles right on the shelves. It's been a tough few years here in BC. We've had wildfires, extreme heat, extreme cold, and crops destroyed. Local producers have taken hit after hit. So it's nice to see that Canadians are actually supporting homegrown wine and beer. This is a win that we really needed.
Now, with many other countries to choose from, how much do you equate that to the Buy Canadian movement?
Yeah, I think it's quite important. I mean, there's, never waste a crisis, I suppose, as some people say. But we've noticed in this moment that as people get frustrated with, the situation down in the United States, there's this massive Buy Canadian movement, and that is translating to increased sales of BC wine. Remember, at all those, government stores here in BC, we suddenly have extra shelf space to put our products on. And it's been really exciting to watch some new consumers choose BC, discover our wines, and find out that we've got some incredible products here and that they can replace a lot of the things they normally get from California and other places. So it's too soon to know exact numbers, but anecdotally, some people are seeing increases of 25, 50% in their sales. And it's also translating into some more tourism opportunities for our industry, which is the best news, because the best place to purchase BC wines is directly from the wineries in the Okanagan or the Similkameen when you get the full experience of what's in that bottle.
Right, I'm not a wine drinker myself. My alcohol tolerance is unfortunately very low. A few glasses and I'm done, and I'll probably be on the floor. But I know a lot of you guys enjoy it. And Jeff made a great point. For Canadians who love wine, it's not just about the drinking. It's a weekend trip. I have a few friends who drive up to the BC interior, and they usually spend a few nights in Kelowna and visit their various different wineries. They're spending money on hotels, local restaurants, shops, and events. Some of them used to fly down to California to do this. Napa Valley, I don't know. I'm not a wine drinker, so I don't know. But now, they're staying in Canada. That's thousands of dollars that's staying local and not heading south of the border.
Now, you mentioned you spoke with a few of the wineries, and they're giving you these numbers, perhaps not hard data yet, but what else are you hearing from industry experts here?
Yeah, well, with the this change in the market, people are wondering, is this a long-term thing? Is this going to be sustainable? Our wine region is quite small. We don't have huge amounts of excess supply, but we are hoping that we can carve out some more shelf space at those retail stores, get on some more menus in the BC's best restaurants, and really just kind of promote this moment. Say there's never been a better time to buy BC. And if you haven't tried BC white wines or red wines or rosé, now is the best time to possibly do that.
We've talked about the cross-border trade. What about interprovincial trade? The Prime Minister is about to at least bring down federal tariffs between provinces. How hopeful are you that BC wine will eventually end up in other provincial liquor store shelves?
Yeah, this one is crazy, right? Because in some ways, it's easier to send a case of wine down to Texas than it is to Alberta. And that's never made sense to anybody. We've had plenty of discussions with this over the years. We're hoping that this is finally time when this idea is going to actually get realized. The difficulty, though, honestly, it comes down to taxation policy. Because if you produce the bottle of wine here in British Columbia, the government has a whole markup system. They want to collect their tax. As soon as you send it over to a place like Alberta, even though the Alberta government never touches it, they also want to add their markups and taxes onto it. And that's a problem because then the wines get priced out of that market and the consumers get frustrated and wondering why they're having to spend an extra $3, $4 a bottle sometimes. But in this moment, we're optimistic that finally, maybe, when all provinces seem to be moving in the right direction, that we can get something done in the next month or so.
All right.
Good news might be on the way. Interprovincial wine tariffs could finally be removed. Things have changed across Canada, and there's no reason why provinces should still be blocked from sharing their wine with other provinces. We should be helping each other from coast to coast to coast. Once these roadblocks are gone, the support gets easier. Now, I want to bring up one thing. If you love wine and you used to visit the wineries in the US, you don't have to give that up. Boycotting the orange guy's country doesn't mean stopping something you enjoy. It just means go somewhere else, somewhere Canadian, or hell, even go to Europe. Try wineries in other provinces, take that same trip, but keep that money here in Canada. Now let's take a look at a Bloomberg report. It shows the real numbers and just how badly the US liquor industry is getting hit. Let's take a look.
U.S. wine exports to Canada plunged in April. They were down more than 90%. And of course, a lot of that is to do with provinces responding to U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs and blocking imports of U.S. booze. That is leading to a problem for the American industry, too much wine being produced. We're joined by Carl Storchman, Executive Director of the American Association of Wine Economists. It's a non-profit educational organization. Fascinating specialty. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. But interesting, this is, in terms of U.S. wine exports, Canada is the biggest market?
Yeah, hello. And it was very surprising to see this because I think the first idea of wine firms here in the US, they thought that a tariff on other goods, including wine, including from Canada, would be a boom, but it has turned out the other way around. So Canada pulled the plug, and the exports of US wine to Canada are virtually down to zero, or they're closing in on zero. So it was 93% May 25 over May 24. And that accounts, like the exports to Canada account for more than a third of all US exports by value. And that is massive.
1/3 of all US exports go to Canada. And now, we're not accepting their alcohol. Well, except for 2 provinces that I won't name. I'm not an economist, and I can't tell you the exact dollar value of that 1/3, but I can tell you this. The US isn't getting that money anymore, and it's being spent elsewhere. Now, can you imagine if this chart that you're seeing on the screen right now represented the US boycott? Imagine the impact that would have. Maybe one day. All right, let's keep going.
And the similar thing happened in China, which is the number 3. It is not a third of all exports, it's like a 10th, but still, I think the US in total in April 24 compared to the year before lost 43% of its exports.
And this can lead to an oversupply of wine. Well, presumably it will, wine that would normally come to this country.
Right, and an oversupply here, right? Because if you cannot ship out all of these millions of dollars worth of wine, they will stay here. Right, the pot is closed, and the lid is on the pot, and it must lead to price drops in the US. So it's not turning out to be a boon. It might be the absolute opposite.
What kind of wine does the US send to Canada? Does it tend to be upmarket wine or lower priced wine?
It's premium wine. So I think like the mean export wine, the mean export price of US wine is about $5. And Canada pays like a premium of 50% more. So it's premium wine. It's like, I think the export prices are like $7.50, something like that. China pays even more. But like Canada is a very, very important market for upscale wine, and it is these like enormous quantities.
Do the Europeans take much wine from America? I guess they will take some of the fancier California wines, or are they too snobby about it?
Oh, that's actually.
All right, a few things to unpack here. Canada isn't cutting off the cheap stuff. We're blocking the premium bottles. And with the premium bottles comes a premium price. Losing your top paying markets in Canada and China? Yeah, that's going to hurt.
We don't need anything they have.
Now, jokes aside, to my European viewers, I'm not sure where this news anchor is from, but he just called you guys snobby on air. Let us know what you think in these comments. Was it rude or just ridiculous?
Actually, the opposite. So the number 2 export market for the US is the Brits, and the Brits They only buy the cheaper wine, and they cost like $1.50 per liter. So is bulk. So the premium wine markets is Canada and China.
That's interesting. Give us an idea, as a wine economist, how is the wine industry doing? I mean, it's got demographics on its side. I think people are they've cut back on beer. Is wine consumption going up?
Wine consumption in the US and globally has been going down probably pretty much starting after COVID. So that is another problem. And that's why that Canada virtually pulled the plug makes it especially hard here. So so wine consumption is down, and it's not per se clear if that is a structural thing that causes this or just a little dip and it might come back up. So there's some like indication for it might come back up. So we had a similar crisis in 1983, 4, 5. And that was only a temporary thing. And many people hope it will be like that too. But the export market is in trouble.
Oh, sorry to hear it's in trouble. Anyways, this isn't 1983, 1984, or 1985. Back then, the US didn't have a president that openly talked about annexing a neighboring country. Also back then, they weren't brushing off their number 1 exporter partner like we didn't matter. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that this time it's going to be a bit different. So the takeaway from both reports: Canadian wineries are doing well. US liquor, struggling. And that's exactly how it should be, until the folks down south get their shit together. That's it for today's video. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this, a like and subscribe would really help grow the channel and get the message out to more Canadians and our allies around the world. Feel free to share this on Facebook or wherever else you think it will hit. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.